Hey, welcome back to Tuesday training for practitioners. Here we go. We got a full house today. I'm so excited to see everybody. Hello, hello. Tuesday training for manual and movement practitioners. Somebody wants to record this. No, I'm going to say no to that. We're recording it onto YouTube, though. You can have it there. Thanks for the request. Hey, Anna. Hey, Lori. Hello. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Everybody's still coming in. I'm clicking all the buttons as fast as I can. Hi. It's nice to see everybody for Tuesday training. I know somebody's doing a car, getting it both and Camille. So good to have you. Let's see. There's lots of people here for the first time. Hey, Gary, not you though. You've been here almost every week. So great to have you. Alan is here for the first time. It's nice to have you. Camille, we saw you driving. Let's see. Nafia, hey, it's nice to see you back. Len is here in the background. Joshua, nice to have you also. Hey, everybody. Oh, good, Joshua. We're happy that you're here too. So, did I get everybody? I hope I said hi to everybody specifically. Yeah, I think I did. Okay. Hi, welcome. So glad that you're here for Tuesday training. Anna's like, we've heard you say hi 3 times. Yes, I just want to make sure I say hi to everybody. I love this hour of the week. I love this hour of the week. We get to like expand and grow together. There's tons of people here. Everybody's excited. It's voluntary. It's not like mandatory training this week, which also brings like a little bit of a lighter flair. So this is like one of my favorite hours. I'm so happy that y'all are here. If you are joining us for the first time, deep welcome to you. You can feel safe here. You can come you can come on camera and off mute at any time. Perry's coming back. That's so great. We saw Perry last week. For an open, like easy conversation. That's what we're here for every week, is just to talk shop with each other. I'm going to, pour into you with some anatomy, teach you something hopefully that you haven't had before, or remind you of something that you've had before and what to do with it this time. If we've not met yet, I am your host for the hour. My name is Gina Schatz, and I developed the Schatz method working clinically. And I also train others in that method as part of my, other hours of the week. And if you're here for the millionth time, welcome back. Lori, I think it was you that said a week ago, we have like our own pod on Tuesdays. Even though it's not a mandatory pre-assigned, we kind of have our own pod. There's so many of you that come back week after week, and we are, developing our own relationship here, which makes it super fun. And we're going to continue on our conversation that we started last week. Hey, Rhonda, nice to have you. Perry's in the house. I feel
Hi,
like
Perry.
another
I know
person.
I said that we have our own pod, and I also love this week how it's expanding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really nice.
I so love it. I don't know if it's just the time of, hey, Perry, I don't know if it's just the time of year where everybody's coming in, or who knows. There's lots of factors, but we're welcome to everybody. Welcome back if you were here last week. Welcome for the first time if you weren't here last week. It's okay. But we are going to pick up on our conversation from last week. We started talking about the sacrum and the axial skeleton. Always a crowd pleaser. It makes me super happy. The sacrum being the keystone of the body and the body's structure. I could go on. I moved in with a sacrum, all kinds of things. Only those of you who've been to my place know what I'm talking about. It's okay. It's not a person, it's a structure, because the keystone of the structure of our body is the sacrum. So makes me super happy. Hey, Cheryl, good to have you. And last week we talked about, the axial skeleton and the sacrum and where it is. And today I want to expand on that and talk about muscles related to the sacrum. And so, now that we know that the sacrum is this, main keystone of the structure, what does that mean? And I want to just highlight here again, if you haven't heard me say this before, especially if you're joining us for the first time, that both manual and movement practitioners equally participate in this conversation, and I speak equally to both parties as well. Because there is this overlap of anatomy where knowing the body parts and knowing how they work is where we all share. And if you're working with pain and preventing pain and injuries and rehabbing injuries, or anything that's therapeutic or orthopedic, you definitely want to know both what manual and movement practitioners know around anatomy. Because where people develop pain is either how they're moving or how they're not moving. So even if you're a manual practitioner, we want to know the movement anatomy that goes with pain and injury if that's what you're solving. So we're here for, you know, an open conversation. Everybody on both sides of the track, if you will, both manual and movement are welcome here. I'm both. So that makes it easy for me to, you know, talk to you where you are. And there's no division here is the point. There's a common thread that we share in the middle. So we're going to talk more about the sacrum today and function of the sacrum. And just before we dive in, for those of you who were here last week, have your notes handy, because today we're going to run it like a training session. I know, don't freak out. Don't disconnect yet. It's not going to be painful. No one's going to get hurt. And here's why. When I train, it's really valuable for us to learn the way our nervous system is designed to learn. So like a little anatomy on the reasons why we learn anatomy this way. So it's really valuable to learn the way our nervous system learns, which is, you guys probably already know this, repetition, review, more repetition, more review, etc. So rather than me just talking at you for an hour, which, you know, you might hear a couple things and maybe jot down a couple notes, that would be awesome. Rather than taking away this much from the hour, and if you're not on camera, I'm holding up my fingers to be like an inch. Rather than taking away this much of the hour, it would be super valuable for you to be interactive with the information, and you'll take away much more, like several inches of stacked information if you want to use inches with percentages. And now I'm on a trail that's not mine, which is math. Don't follow me there. It'll get messy quick. But I promise you that I know anatomy and physiology, and that's what I'm here for each week. So today we're going to walk through sacrum and new bits of information by recalling what we talked about last week so we can stack it in a way that really makes sense, so that my hope for us at the end of the time together today that you can apply what we've learned rather than just have more fancy notes in your notebook, which I love, but I also know that you guys are up to really important work in the world, and I want you to be able to apply what we're doing together. How's that sound? You guys good? So it kind of puts those of you who were here last week a little on the hot seat, but that's not true. It puts you on the repetition seat, which means you're a leg up. See what I did there? Turning it into an optimistic positive. See, yeah, that's how we did it. So a couple of new people came in since I've been talking. Jetty, nice to see you. Yee, nice to see you. Kathy, glad you're here. Who else have I not said hi to? Are there two Kathys, or am I scrolling too fast? Stephen, nice to have you. Terrence, good to have you as well. So please do feel free to participate at whatever level works for you. You can use the chat. You can come, you know, off mute and speak into the microphone, whatever works for you. But participate, because that's the point. Like if you participate, you'll get more value out of it. So here we go. You guys ready? Sacrum, function in sacrum, muscles in sacrum. You ready for that? You guys ready? Okay. So here we go with Murph. And now Murph, I just want to say this, if you guys haven't met Murph yet, his name is Murph, obviously, because Murphy's Law. Doesn't have a hand, hella janky, usually loose in the joints. I mean, the guy's just a mess, but he's a really great assistant. And he's feeling a little under the, not under the weather, but a little low in spirits, because yesterday I was just meeting a new relative of his. Lori got her skeleton, and I got to meet her skeleton in person yesterday. And even though he was also out of alignment, yeah, he had all his parts attached, and he has fabulous nerve roots in the spine. So that was also really fun. I like, speaking of interactive and 3D and kinesthetic learning, I really like having one of these guys. You don't have to have a life-size one if that doesn't appeal to you, but I recommend just having a little guy, because you can see details if they're made well. You got to search and find one that's made well. If they're made well, you'll see lots of nuances and bony landmarks. And until I learned muscles, and maybe this is true for you too, and connective tissue, I kind of took all that for granted. I was just like, oh, wow, it's like a rough draft. We need a nail file. We need to like spruce that guy up, make him more geometric, but that's actually not the case. And then it's not just Murph, it's me. Oh, I'm designed like this. I'm not exact angles. I'm not perfectly smooth. I'm perfectly organic. And so are you. And so are the people we serve. So I really like having a skeleton nearby for that reason, to be reminded. I've been facing my perfection nerd in the last week and feeling, you know, tech troubled, if you will. And then I remember, oh wait, like perfection's not the game, Gina. You're not going to win that one. Remember the sacrum, remember the organic nature of the bones. So I really feel like all of our life lessons are somewhere here in our anatomy and physiology, and this is one of them. So grab a skeleton if you don't have one, or at least a book that delineates these nuances. And these nuances are part of our conversation today, the nuances on the sacrum, especially as we're talking about sacrum and sacrum function. So recapping from last week, what did we say about the sacrum relative to the rest of the skeleton? And I know some of you have been, I've been loving looking at all the quiz questions, quiz answers that have been coming through on your newsletters. You guys are getting the newsletters and filling out those quiz questions. Just know it lights me up. There's the most recent quiz was on the sacrum. I'm going to just scroll here and let a few more people in. The most recent pop quiz was on the sacrum, and there were 4 possible answers. And 2 of them were correct, not 1. So just know that if you were filling out your pop quiz. And what did we learn, either in the pop quiz or from last week? What did we learn about the sacrum relative to the rest of the skeleton? Who wants to popcorn out what you've got? Cheryl?
The sacrum is part of the axial skeleton.
It is. Yes, it is. What else do we know?
Other parts of the axial skeleton?
That's a great question. That's a great, yeah, go there. What else do we know about the exoskeleton?
The skull.
Yep.
The spine.
Yep.
The coccyx bone.
Yep.
And the rib and the sternum. The ribs.
The ribs. Yep. And the sternum.
And the sternum.
Perfect. Really good. Really good. So last week, if this was new for you, last week we said, okay, so in your mind's eye, take away everything else. And what does it look like? And I used the visual of a tadpole. It's helpful to remember that the axial skeleton is right down the middle and it's like a tadpole. There's still movement there, but there aren't wings and flaps and things like that. Which leads us to, well, then what makes up the appendicular skeleton? Rough draft. Anybody remember? Harry, I think you gave us the answer last week. Anybody else? Come on, guys. Appendicular. Sounds like appendages.
Well, you got your limbs.
We got your limbs. Yeah. I get the meeting invitations, but no quizzes, Jetty says. Wonder if the quizzes are for those. Let me read the rest of this here. Wonder if the quizzes are for those doing the courses. No, nope. You are welcome to have the quizzes. The pop quizzes are in your newsletter, Jetty. So I'm not sure. You must have. Well, I was going to say you must have had a newsletter to come here to this meeting, but that's not actually true because we do post it on social every once in a while. So I'll tell you what, if you want to send me a private message with your email, I can include you in those pop quizzes and you'll be sure to get the next one. Okay, Perry, was there something else you were going to say besides appendages? What did you say? Limbs. You said limbs. Yeah. Anything else you were adding?
Ilium.
Ilium. Whoa. Yes. Exciting. So ilium is one of the bony landmarks on the innominate, which is the whole
Yeah.
hip bone. Yep. And last week also what we didn't say, speaking of limbs, we didn't say the collarbone and the scapula, also part of the appendicular skeleton. Okay. So what was the significance that we talked about last week? This is big. This is big. If you're working with injuries or anything in that neighborhood, this is big. What did we say was the significance of the relationship between the sacrum and the innominate? Hi, Mylin, nice to see you. What did we say was the relationship between these 3? Dun, 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 dun. Anybody remember? Oh, you guys want me to pour into you today, and I do too, and I also want you to get something out of it. What did we say was the significance of the relationship here?
Well, those are the connections. Those are the three bones that are connected to the sacrum.
The three bones. Yep. Which three bones, Gary?
The ilium and the sacrum, those are the three bones that are considered part of the sacrum, and everything else that's trying to think of the connections. Everything else is the appendicular.
So close, so close. Jetty, yep, you typed it in here. I have the chat open now so I can see you. So it's the innominate that you're thinking of. Let me take off Murph's leg. It's half hanging up anyway. So this bone here is the innominate, not the ilium, but the ilium is a bony landmark. The ilium is a bony landmark on this hole, which is the innominate, or ox coxa, which is more current. Ox coxa, which is the Latin term for this whole bone, right? Your acetabulum is in there as well, where the femur meets. All of those are bony landmarks on this main bone. And there's two of them, one on each side. And they touch each other at the front. They meet. They don't touch each other. They meet at a joint where the pubic symphysis, which is a piece of cartilage, sort of creates a buffer there. So anywhere there two bones meet, there's movement available. That's called a joint. It's an articulation, right? And there's connective tissue. Bones don't touch each other. They're not meant to do that. They have something in between them that creates safe movement, buffered movement, a particular type of accurate friction rather than grinding bone on bone. So where these two innominants or hip bones meet, hip would be the street term. It's not completely accurate, but it's most of what people think about when they talk about their hip, although truly they think about up here, and the hip itself is where the joint action happens, which is the acetabulum where it meets the femur. So not exactly accurate to say hip, but one side of the pelvis is the innominate and the other side is a matching innominate. It meets in the middle in the front. Pubic bone, also not a separate bone, but a bony landmark, pubic bone, and a piece of cartilage in between. So there's a joint here in the front. And in the back, those two bones don't meet next to each other. There's another bone in the way, but he's never in the way. Sacrum's never in the way. Sacrum's sacred, never in the way, perfectly placed. Where this bone meets this bone, we have the appendicular skeleton meeting the axial skeleton. Really important. And there's also a joint on either side because where two bones meet, there's a joint. Sacrum and the ilium, the bony landmark on the innominate, sacrum, ilium, joint in between, sacroiliac joint. Tons of function happening here. Tons of function happening here. Not only because of the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton meeting, but also because of the significance of one of those three bones, the sacrum, and the role that it plays in the body, which is literally the base of the rest of the axial skeleton. So I think I said last week, it's the place where the appendicular and axial skeleton meet. Well, we know that that also happens up here too. The appendicular skeleton being the scapula meets the axial skeleton, the ribs for sure. Non-weight bearing, like completely non-weight bearing, irrelevant to weight bearing, with the exception of the role of the rotator cuff, which we've talked about in earlier classes, right? Earlier trainings. But down here, there's weight bearing. There's the meeting of the appendicular and axial skeleton. There's the columns that we connect to the earth with that are holding all of our weight, that literally articulate up in to one of these bones through the acetabulum. There's a big deal going on right here. And it's the base of the entire other skeleton, the axial skeleton, which has a huge role in pain reduction. Axial skeleton role is not pain producing. But if we know the anatomy of the axial skeleton, we can get rid of most of the pain in the body. Because this is that tadpole that I talked about, this axial skeleton being the tadpole, no arms and legs on its own, still has movement and needs to be aligned. And oftentimes we spend our time looking at what the arms and legs are doing and trying to put those in the right place. For the yoga teachers in my sound of my voice, I'm talking to you. we tend to put our arms and legs in the right place and miss completely the rightness of the axial skeleton and where it needs to be. So that shows us that there's 4 balanced curves: sacrum, lumbar, thoracic, and cervical. 4 balanced curves in our design, 4 balanced curves in our movement. Without these 4 balanced curves, it's irrelevant where your arms and legs are, my babes. Like, irrelevant. It's too far down the pike. So we want to create awareness about where this axial skeleton needs to be in space and in alignment, and the significance of the sacrum. And then it starts connecting to the appendicular skeleton where there's weight bearing. So there is focus on the legs and feet. We talked about this last week. There's lots of conversation out there like, oh, does it start at the feet? Does it start at the cranium, C1 and C2? Does it start at the sacrum? True that there's other places of focus, for sure. For the same reason, though. For the same reason that this axial skeleton gets to be neutral aligned, stabilized there, and neutral aligned and moved from that neutral alignment. So however you get to create that, you get to create that. I clinically tend to find a ton of value, most of the value, in aligning the sacrum at the innominants and then the sacrum to the lumbar spine and up. That's the way I work. It's like super rough draft, but that's the crux of the shots method. If I get those areas of the body aligned in that order, and I get to keep them there, and then I teach someone how to move from there, they're pain-free. Do I have to work on the legs at times? Yeah. The key there is, though, at times. Not every time, but every time I have to work on the sacrum. Every time. Because its relationship to the rest of the body, the weight bearing, the base of the axial skeleton, and the function at the SI joints means that if there's something awry in the sacrum, literally everything else is affected. From the innominants all the way down to the feet, and from the sacrum all the way up to the cranium. So the sacrum is the keystone of the structure. That's the way I see it. That's the way I work it. That's also the way I teach it. So if that's blowing your mind right now and you're like, she's wrong, cool. Take a deep breath. Let's just see if you might learn something else today that might be in addition to what you already know. Because I know I'm not completely wrong, or I wouldn't still be employed seeing clients. And I do that all week, every week. Okay. So that's our relationship to the sacrum relative to the appendicular skeleton. Any questions there? Especially if you weren't here last week and this has felt like a little fast. Any questions there on axial and appendicular skeleton? Really important to get the base of that. Mylin, I see your note and I will absolutely add you. Thank you. Anybody else? Or anybody have questions here? We good? Okay, anything I didn't add that you had from your notes last week? Those of you who are here? Cheryl, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Well, one of the things that I did write down was 99% of all pain stems from the sacrum.
99, did I say that?
That's what I wrote down.
You wrote it down. I either said it or you wrote it down or it got translated that way. I don't mind it, but here's what I would say today, given an opportunity to edit.
Okay.
99% of the structural issues in the body stem from the alignment of the sacrum, and structural issues are the cause of pain. Unless we're talking pathology, which is not the lane that we're in. I had somebody email me that this week. Well, what about this? What about that? All diagnoses and pathologies. And fair question. And in the work that I do, and in the work that I think most of you do, we're not navigating pathologies as the primary focus of the work that we do. We're navigating musculoskeletal issues as the primary focus. And so it's implied that we're focused there on an otherwise healthy musculoskeletal system that found itself in a bit of a pickle. Okay, it's not to say that pathology doesn't play a part. Unless you've taken pathology, I did. And I know that there's a difference between a healthy system that's in trouble, which could feel unhealthy, and like a legitimate pathology situation, which is not our lane as licensed body workers. And I say body workers to collect all of us in that umbrella. So I just want to make sure that if I said that last week, thank you, Cheryl, for bringing it up and for the opportunity to edit. 99% of the musculoskeletal issues stem from a misalignment of the sacrum. And musculoskeletal misalignment is what causes pain, musculoskeletal pain. Because if we move the way we're designed, there's no pain, guys. So how are we designed? And then what's our role in returning folks back to their design so that there's no pain? Returning them back to their design. And I'd like to just add there, when we talk movement, I'm talking to you movement professionals just like me. When we talk movement, we tend to focus on what the movement looks like. And what I would invite you to do is, what does it look like under the skin? What does it look like relative to these four curves and the relationship between the sacrum and the innominate? What does the movement look like there, not outside past the Lululemons on the reformer or the yoga mat or, you know, in the gym? What does it look like here? What's the movement look like at every joint? So back to the axial skeleton, each one of these vertebra, there's movement available there. So you could be moving and have it look like you're doing the movement activity you're doing, but what's happening with the relationship here in this curve and the alignment here? And in this curve and the alignment here, there's movement available everywhere two bones meet. So what's happening there? Like, look there for the movement. And if you're a manual practitioner and you're resolving musculoskeletal pain and discomfort, what's happening when your client moves that they brought to you with their pain that you're now manhandling to try to handle, which I get. What are you handling? And it's not meant to be, you know, a triggering question. It's like, yeah, what am I handling? I'm handling how this was aligned and how this was moved when it wasn't aligned and what muscles responded in that way. Because we know that if we move the way we're designed, there's no pain. So what are we handling then if we're doing the manual work? What are we handling? And it's just a great question to keep asking yourself, because then it gives you more context to what you're doing. Like, what am I doing with this muscle in my hand right now? What am I doing with my elbow? What am I trying to do? Based on what? So my mastery practitioners know I ask them all the time, based on what? Great idea. Based on what? Based on what? And it's, you know, maybe that's a little triggering in mastery, but it's not meant to be here. It's meant to be provocative and like, oh yeah, I'm restoring movement and the way the body's designed to move, and then the pain will go away. Which leads us to our additional conversation today on muscles, because the bones don't move by themselves. Well, we already knew that. The muscles are what move the bones. So what muscles come to mind when you think of the axial skeleton? If you're a movement professional, what are they moving? If you're a manual professional, what are you palpating? What are the muscles that move this axial skeleton? What comes to mind for you? I'm going to put Murph this way because you can usually see him more in my camera. What muscles come to mind? Whoa, Jetty says the joint movements in the sacral iliac joint are very small, but if the SI joint is very stiff, spondy, etc., would you say it's due to muscle and ligament issues causing even more stiffness than it already is? By the way, my notes from your June 2021. Oh, you've been here a long time, Jetty. And sacrum in invitation made me to move my sacrum to come to this webinar after a long time. When the mind is ready, the teacher appears. Oh, I'm so glad this timing is good for you. That's amazing. Okay, so your question on pathology, it is valid, right? It's valid. Would I say that the muscles and ligament issues cause more stiffness than it already is in pathological situations? It's a bit of a chicken and an egg, to be honest with you. So in places like spondy, and if you don't know what these terms are, just write them down. You can learn them later, okay? Don't freak out on diagnoses at this point because it's a rabbit hole that you don't really want to go down right now. Just trust me. The way to navigate pathology, this is true for everybody. The way to navigate pathology and quote big words that kind of overwhelm us when we're like, shit, I don't even know what that is to write it down, take a deep breath, remind yourself of the anatomy that you know, and then look at the diagnosis and compare the diagnosis when it all goes wrong to the anatomy that you know and how we were designed. And that's the best way to bridge that gap in understanding. And it takes time, not 100 years, but it takes time. Every client who came to me with some radical diagnosis that could have freaked me out, I was just like, I have no idea what that is. Let me write it down. And then I would open up my books and I'd be like, okay, I can barely pronounce this, but it's on this part of the body, in this bone, doing this thing. Go back to the bone, what it's supposed to do, go back to the diagnosis. Oh, this is what it's doing now, and it's supposed to be doing that. And it just, you take a minute, be patient with yourself. Give yourself bandwidth to learn, guys. Like, try not to lambaste yourself. I don't know who needs to hear that right now, but somebody needs to hear that, because there's a lot of impatience and it doesn't work. So just be calm about it and you'll get it. So back to your question, Jetty. In instances like spondy, big picture, I have decided clinically that spondy is often like a cousin of hypermobility. Things aren't stable enough and connected enough to stop moving, where the vertebra can just slip and slip and slip and slip and slip. Now, if you are a medical doctor and you're here, you probably have other information than I do. That's not my lane, right? We already said that. Doesn't mean we get to be irresponsible about it. This is generally what I know. And it's also what I've treated. So in situations of instability, the muscles and ligaments and connective tissue that hold those bones stable would absolutely show up with more tightness, because they're digging into their job. They're like holding harder because there's movement happening that shouldn't be happening. Okay. So in those instances, we don't want to just release the soft tissue because it's responding to an issue. We want to serve the issue to the best of our ability so that the muscles then comply. Muscles don't just get pissed off spontaneously. There's a reason why. So let's find out what the reason is, rather than just target a muscle and force that bad boy to let go. That's really not a good treatment plan. So what's causing it to respond in that way is important. And in situations where there's spondy, it's just excessive movement. The role in our job, I believe, is to create alignment, stability, and the muscles will chill out. In some of the other pathologies that you reference here is if there's other reasons why the bones are degrading, the muscles will respond to the degradation, and it's needed because the bones are degrading. And our lane is not to stop the degradation of bones. It is to stop or intercede with anything arthritic, generalized arthritic at a joint, because that's often where the articulation is just rubbing from a misaligned place over and over and over and over and over again. Same is true for bursitis. There's something in that joint structure which is divinely designed to work with no problem. If there's an itis or an inflammation, something's rubbing. Okay, what's causing the rubbing? Not how do I get rid of the itis? What's causing the rubbing that's making the itis appear is our job. Not just put ice packs on to get the itis down. It's going to come back because we haven't figured out what caused it. So I hope that answers your question. And maybe brought up some other questions as well. That's normal. So let's go back to the muscles on the axial skeleton, specifically centered around the sacrum. What do you guys know about muscles? And what's moving the sacrum? What's responsible for the movement at the sacrum? You're welcome. My pleasure. What do you guys know about the muscles around the sacrum? Anybody? Anybody?
My Lord, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Like when I think about that, like this kind of weaving, how they go in and out of the bones, and there's so many, and there's a lot of like intrinsic muscles that are in there, and there's a lot of big phasic muscles that like all it just feels like everybody's got a say in what's going on in the sacrum. Like all of the muscles are like, we're here and we're playing. Like
Yeah.
that's big picture when I think of of the muscles of the sacrum, like
Mhm.
so many,
Mhm.
so many.
Which is another telltale for those of you who are still, who might still be enrolling in the sacrum-centric idea of alignment. That's another tell. There's so many muscles. If you tie all the muscles back to the bones that they move and the bones that they affect, there's more at the sacrum than other joints in the body. That's a big tell. Like, what is actually going on there? Oh, just about everything. Okay, noted. Got it. Yeah. So what do we know about the muscles? You guys want to name them out? I don't know what comes up with muscle ID. You guys all freak out. I used to be just like that, by the way. I used to be just like that. I remember going back to school. Oh, I don't know. I was probably licensed maybe 18 or 19 years at that point. And I went back to school while I was waiting for my license to transfer. And something about a question about muscles and my heart would start to race. And I was like, Gina, what's happening here? Like, so I remember that feeling. I know the hot seat feeling. I am talking right now, so you can grab your anatomy book. Thank you, Mastery Practitioners. I see you're doing exactly that. I give a little buffer there because I know how it rolls, babes. I get it. Okay, so what do we know about, let's call on the intrinsic muscles. Let's start there. What do we, and if you don't know intrinsic and phasic yet, that's okay. Just know that, write it down. You want to go learn that later. What do we know about the intrinsic muscles relative to the sacrum? Let's start with that class first. What do we know about the intrinsic muscles? What are they?
Paraspinals.
Paraspinals, yeah. And we use paraspinals to refer to many, many muscles, right? The erector spinae, yeah, Jetty, you got it. The erector spinae, and also the transversospinalis, and there's several muscles in each of those groups. And now we back to that big word, like, holy God, I don't even remember, my tongue is twisted. I didn't even get innominate, I called it ilium. No problem, guys. Call it paraspinals, and then maybe over, a lovely cup of matcha someday in the next 4 days, you'll open up an anatomy book and remind yourself the names of the paraspinals and look at them and where they're attached and maybe more specifics about it. So take it calm and easy, but go back and remember, because there's several. Big picture, because that's what we have time for here. Big picture, they attach at the base of the cranium, go all the way down these 4 curves, and attach at the sacrum, mostly via the aponeurosis. Is that what you're saying, Anna? Yes, good job. Well done. I remember a day when that was new, right? For all of us. It's so good. When you know it because you take the time to know it, which is great. So the aponeurosis being connective tissue, also a tell about what's happening here. Very dense, very connective, very hardy in the attachment of these muscles to this bone. And remember, attachment's not just like where it attaches. Attachment is like, I'm responsible for you, attachment. I'm responsible to move with you through the world. I'm responsible to make you move through the world. Heavy connection, right, in this area. All these muscles, and it gets heavier, 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 most dense right at the sacrum. That's a tell too. So the paraspinals as a group are responsible for moving not only every one of these joints, so there's movement at every single vertebra. The paraspinals are responsible not only for that, but also for the alignment of these 4 curves, the balanced alignment, the aligned design of these 4 curves. The paraspinals are responsible for that. So if you're navigating someone's back pain and you're a manual practitioner and you're like, wow, these muscles are really tight, I'm going in there, I'm going to release those puppies. Cool. Question is, how did they get tight? Why are they acting that way? And it's largely because something in these 4 curves is imbalanced, or those muscles wouldn't be upset. Because if we are aligned the way we're designed, there's no pain. If we move the way we're designed, there's no pain. So if there's tension here that's causing pain, rather than just go at a muscle, and movement practitioners, you would do the same thing by trying to, quote, stretch it, rather than forcing a muscle that's waving its white flag to give up its duty to preserve the body, find out what in the body's design is off and address that. The muscles will respond by relaxing. You don't have to go at them. Now, if some of you are manual practitioners with a lot of refined technique, you might be like, well, but what about? And I hear you. Myofascial, trigger points, adhesions. I totally get you. I use my hands for a living too. And what I'm going to invite us all to consider is that those responses in muscle tissue are formed for a reason. They come from somewhere. It's not just the air. They are formed because we're not in a neutral alignment. The massive, really common trigger points in the upper and middle traps that refer up to the cranium and cause migraines and headaches and sinus issues. Babes, I get you. I studied that too. And all of that is every time associated with a misalignment in this area. And I don't mean chiropractic, you need to be cracked. I mean the alignment of where is this curve relative to this curve. We all have forward head posture right now. Every one of us does. I'm looking at y'all, including me. Look at how forward my head is right now. Are we going to develop trigger points and adhesions as a response to that? So do I want someone to just deep tissue my shoulders or stretch my neck? Sure, I probably want that. Is that going to solve it or prevent it from coming back? No, it's not, because those are responses also that come from tissues that are telling us they're a tell. Something's not balanced here in this alignment. And we just talked about the neck and shoulders and the really common trigger points and referral patterns, et cetera, up here. And again, these muscles go all the way down to here. They just do. So even when we release all this up here and the client feels better and we're like, no, that girl Gina, she's out of her mind. I released everything. I got every freaking trigger point to respond. Well, I don't know if that's possible in a session, but good for you. I did all the myofascial work. I know what I'm up to. Great, awesome. Did you connect it back to here? Did you connect it back? There's a huge component to consider down here at the sacrum. We talked about it. Not only is it the base of everything up here that we're affecting, but it's also muscularly connected and then denser in its connection here, meaning also denser and less willing to move. So I can move all this really easy, but did I move this and connect the dots? Because it's connected. Okay, so that's 101 on intrinsic muscles relative to the sacrum and what to take care of. Hey, Rhonda, got a cue? What's up?
So, in restoring the forecurve, the alignment of the four curves,
Yeah.
We're not stretching, we're not releasing,
Yeah.
we're changing behavior and habits.
Changing behavior and habits is a good one.
Okay.
Yeah. And using everything you know about how to get the person. Okay, Lori, thanks for being here. Everything you know to get the person who you're supporting to understand the why. Right? Because those habits are also designed for a reason. It's either lack of awareness, it could be laziness, but less often, but mostly it's designed either because of lifestyle and they don't know, like sitting at their computer, they don't realize, right? Everybody sits at a computer. I work at my desk, Gina, I have kids to feed, like they don't even know the connection. So it's like informing them of what they don't know so that they can be empowered to do something. And then there's also the category of they were in trouble, in pain at one point, and they developed that habit to avert some of that pain. So we don't want to just be like, sit up straight. We got layers to work through there. And that's a big deal. And it's like super important. We do that in our mastery program. It's called repatterning. And there's lots to consider. It seems like it would be easy, and it relatively is. Like once you know the anatomy, it's easy. The concept is easy. Knowing what to say and what to do and who to say it to and why, that takes some training. So give yourself a little bit of window. But yes, Jetty, just as you said, postural education. And again, just like with muscles, just like with movement, just like with manual practices, if you're not 100% sure, wait until you are, because you don't want to erode your confidence by being kind of half-assed about it, and then creating a lot of confusion between you and the person you're serving, because they're going to feel your energy around being a little tentative, and then you're going to feel them feeling yours, and you already came in tentative, and then you're going to be like, this, I'm not any good, this doesn't work, what I learned on Tuesday is not relevant. Like you'll want to dismiss it because it's uncomfortable. So be thoughtful, give yourself time to learn it, and then when you're like, I got this, then go practice, so that you can come, assured that you're going to make some changes. Maybe you've already had postural education. That would be great. Start there. And if you're not sure, wait until you are. And I did not say wait until you feel like an expert. That's not the same. You can only feel like an expert when you have lots of evidence that what you did worked, which means you must be in the game playing on the field, not in the bleachers taking notes. Dog biting if you are not calm or scared. Dog biting if you're not calm or scared. I don't know what that means, Jetty. Say more. Okay, so that's intrinsic muscles on the sacrum. Rhonda, did that answer your question? You got good? Okay, great. So what about phasic muscles that are related to the sacrum and the movement there? What do we know?
I'm going to jump in with my favorite.
Okay. Give it to us.
Favorite muscle. But before I jump in with my favorite one, I was going to mention the psoas as also intrinsic, well, and phasic, but
it is.
Its important role as an intrinsic muscle.
For sure. Love it. And I love that you put it in both categories, because it is definitely indeed in both. He has got a big job. Woo, baby, he's got a big job.
Right. So yeah, he's right up there. But the big basic one for me is the glute max.
Yeah, it is. Do you want to tell us why, Anna? And do you want to talk about your evolution with glute max? Because it's been lovely to witness in the last year.
Yeah, it has. It has. Yeah. I love that muscle.
I know.
I kind of make it responsible for everything. It's a big muscle, right? It's a big rump muscle, and its attachment on, I'm not going to call it the side of the sacrum, but sort of the underside of the sacrum is huge.
It is
huge. And
here.
So so it plays a really, really big role. And then we have the piriformis that also attaches there, which is one of the, deep six muscles responsible for lateral rotation. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff there. But max for the win if you're looking for a big phasic one.
Yeah, those are two good ones. Those are two excellent ones. So Anna, I'm going to shine a light if you're open to it. Share with us what you learned about the glute max that evolved your understanding of that muscle relative to the sacrum. Because you've been on quite a journey with glute max for some time. It's been fun. What did you learn?
I think for me, what I learned the most was its important role in hyperextension of the leg and its really important role in walking. The push off and the walking, and we've all got glute max amnesia. And what happens when you don't use the glute max, because muscles like your hamstring are going to kick in and your PWL are going to kick in. So it's such a pivotal, if this sacrum is sort of the keystone, it's a side keystone to connections up and down. But for me, it was definitely its important role in walking and the difference that's made in my own walking and my pain, really. And I pass that forward, and I've got several clients who are like, holy shit, just learning how to walk and learning to use that glute max muscle has, relieved knees going wonky, relieved plantar fasciitis. So I'm all about the glute max as a keystone of some sort.
Okay. I don't know if Sacrum's going to let you use Keystone for glute max, but it might understand the relationship. Anna, that was so good. Thank you. Yeah. So everything you just said So if these are the femur, right, inside the acetabulum, and we're doing hyperextension of the hip as we walk, one and then the other, I can't do that and still keep my fingers in there, but you get what I mean, hyperextension of the hip as we're walking. It requires glute max to contract because that's the muscle that's primarily responsible to do that job. And as you mentioned, Anna, most of us have lengthened glute max. I think every single one of you is seated right now, as am I. I've been sitting at my computer teaching all morning. It's been 4 hours now. The fibers of my glute max are not round and plump. I'm still aiming for a JLo booty before I leave the planet while I still have these bad boys to work with. And it's a daily struggle because she's not sitting at her computer and I am. So when these lengthened fibers are what we work with all day long, to stand up and ask them to contract fully when I'm walking is kind of a big ask. Not ask, but ask. And what ends up happening is then we start blaming this glute amnesia, glute amnesia, glute amnesia. And there is some validity there, for sure. And here's what I also know. Because of where that muscle attaches, if either side of the sacrum is not articulating with its respective bone, the ilium, the bony landmark, the ilium, to make up the SI joint, if any movement or alignment discrepancy is present in this sacrum, even without ours lengthening my glute max from sitting, it wouldn't be able to fire fully. For those of you who came to the lever system masterclass this spring, we talked about exactly that. The muscles can only fully contract to do their job if the bones that they're attached to are aligned first. And that is definitely a chicken and an egg, because I'm not talking chiropractic here. I'm talking everything that's in our realm as manual and movement practitioners to address. Every single thing I'm talking about is work that I do, that you could do. I'm manual and movement practitioner. So we need to figure out which is the chicken and which is the egg. Did the lengthened glute max not hold the sacrum in place? Or did the lengthened glute max that then contracted pull on the sacrum? Or is there an imbalance right to left in the strength because of some other habit, as Rhonda was sharing, the patterning, the lifestyle choices, right? Sitting on, some guys still carry their wallet in their back pocket. Some women, might be me, still tuck their foot underneath and sit under only one innominate. Like, that's a problem. It's going to cause a misalignment between these three bones, which is going to make it very difficult for that glute max, which is attached on either side of the sacrum, to contract equally, which could then allow the sacrum to move. And now the sacrum's out of alignment, and now the muscle can't contract fully, and now we're chicken and egging again. So we might blame a glute amnesia on a walker, a person walking who's not contracting glute max. We might not even know that we're supposed to contract glute max to walk. Most people don't, and they contract QL instead, and that's what causes their low back pain. They don't even know it's supposed to be glute max, but once we do know it's supposed to be glute max, we might not understand why it's not firing. And it's sacrum-centric. It's the sacrum. Is the sacrum in place, balanced with the other four curves, including all the way up to the neck and shoulder tension we talked about? And is the sacrum balanced relative to the two bones it articulates with, so that glute max bilaterally can contract when I'm walking? If the answer to any one of those is no, then we might spin around and around and around and not actually take care of someone's pain and think it's us. I mean, at some point, it's just what we don't know. And in others, it's like, well, I do know anatomy, but I don't know how to put all that together. This is not a plug for my mastery program, but I am letting you know, this is exactly how we work. It's how I work. Let me be thoughtful. This is how I work. Everything I just taught you and everything I teach you every week is what I work with clinically. If I don't know it, I can't teach it. So everything that I'm sharing with you is how I work and the way I assess clients. And then I also share that with other practitioners so you can do the same thing. I only do that once a year. So Mastery is available once per year. It's a year-long program. We happen to be in that window right now. You get to make a decision if you're on the fence about that or if you're just hearing about it, because we start July 1st every year, which is my birthday, but that's not why, but it kind of is. But we start July 1st every year and we run for a year. And this is the kind of stuff we work out and then what to do about it, because I believe that it works. I have all these decades of proof. That's my evidence. So I do feel really confident about it because I have the evidence for it. And I want you to have that too. Okay, Jetty, so I see your comment about the dog and you're absolutely right. I learned more about my own energy and centeredness from my pup than probably any other creature on the planet. So that's true. Energy is a direct conduit. So yes, we get to have strong centered energy, confidence, so that we can walk in and be like, I got you. I know your client freaking out, buzzing around with your energy because you're in pain and you've been at it for a while, but I'm calm. I got this. That's what we want to approach, especially complex pain injuries. We want to approach with that kind of like centeredness. Jetty said, my notes from June 21 from Gina's excellent webinar referred to the amnesia that Anna is talking about. At that time, Gina had described all of this. Oh, good. At least I'm keeping my word and repeating myself. That's good to know. And that, I think you might be talking about the Sacred Sacrum course, Jetty. I'm not sure. And that one is coming up as well for the first time live in that many years. G says, are tonic muscles and intrinsic muscles termed synonymously and extrinsic and phasic? I love this question. Extrinsic and phasic, yes, those are probably interchangeable terms. Tonic muscles, I'm holding out on that one because I don't know what context you're using that in. So sometimes we can talk about tonic tension in a muscle, which means more like what I call turgor, where it's not contracting or relaxing. It's just sort of like, it's like frustrated, like nothing's really moving. And I would not describe intrinsic muscles that way. Intrinsic muscles are the smaller muscles. There's two classifications of muscles in the body based on their actions. And intrinsic muscles do posture and balance. And that was actually the first word that I heard just before I trademarked our method, because I hadn't learned intrinsic muscles in school. Joan says, what about foot posture? What about foot posture, Joan? What's your question? Okay, my darlings, this is super fun. I'm just present to the time. We have 2 minutes left and I do have a training right after this. So I get to go, but doesn't mean we can't pick up on this conversation next week. Yes, Anna.
So I'm going to put in an unabashed plug here if anybody's sitting on the fence on the shots method, completely unsolicited, obviously. But I came into this 500-hour training as a yoga teacher, having learned muscles, but no idea what their role was. Like truly, no idea, no real true idea what their function was. So teaching yoga classes, and I just knew I had to learn more anatomy and the role of the muscles and the journey. So I started last July 1. The journey has been unbelievable. It's like the richness, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The richness that I feel, the confidence, the more knowledge that I can share with my people, because I'm learning that basically everyone I've worked with really wants body awareness. They want to know. So if you're sitting on the fence, just jump over. Be afraid and jump over.
Oh, Anna, that's so sweet. And that is very unscripted. I had no idea you were going to do that. And I love that you're sharing it because you were in and then questioned it. And now you're super in, which I love because you created that for yourself based on this information and what it did for you. So there's no arm wrestling on that. That was just surely your experience, which has been a delight to watch for the last 11 and a half months. Okay, my loves, that is it for me for today. It wraps up my service to you today, but there's more. I will absolutely come back next week and talk more sacrum. Thank you, Gary, for asking us for sacrum this week. Come back with your questions on sacrum if you have them next week, or function on sacrum, and we'll move on to patterning and function from there, okay? Have an amazing week. Thank you for all the incredible work you do in the world, and I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.